Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. You know the drill. We are retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders, and also our guest that's here with us, amazing Aunt. She too she's in with that whole our whole conversation here tonight. She's a 9/11 World Trade Center first responder, NYPD retired sergeant. We're going to be talking tonight about Robert Brooks, the murder at Marcy Correctional Facility. 36 days into this thing and still no arrest. That murder captured for the very first time and the only time that I've ever seen something like this in a correctional institution on film and no arrest. Ed, I know you're as mad as hell as I am, and it's such a travesty of justice and all of the above. I mean, 36 days into this thing, we haven't even had a statement from the Onondaga County District Attorney's Office after being handed over by Letitia James. Not even a statement. Ed, I want to go to you for your thoughts, because you are a man of reason.
It's disgusting. Totally disgusted with what's going on here. The lack of press. This should be national news. National news should be getting played every day. I don't understand what's going on here, because they have had enough to arrest these COs for assault. Just arrest them for assault. They had enough just for that. They could have went into the grand jury later, hold them all in, and put them before the grand jury to go for the murder trial, charges rather. But they had enough. I just don't understand how this is playing out this way. I understand the family's grieving. I did see their press conference, and they were. I give them a lot of credit for the press conference. I felt their pain, and I appreciated what they had to say, and the way they're handling themselves in such a horrific incident. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever how this is playing out. 36 days, honestly, 36 days without amount of evidence on the video for what transpired. I can't see it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. And I want to go to you, Aunt, because amazing Aunt, we haven't really heard you chime in on this. I want to get your thoughts as a retired NYPD sergeant and as a human being. As it pertains to the murder of Robert Brooks. And I and all of us here on the panel, we will openly say the murder of Robert Brooks. This is no incident. This is no, there's no sugarcoating this. And I hate when I hear people talk about the incident at Marcy Correctional. That's bullshit. There is no incident. That's a murder that we witnessed on body cam. Over to you, Sarge.
This is egregious. I can't even say Happy New Year. I thank everyone for being here. But most importantly, I thank you, gentlemen, the finest of the finest detectives, for bringing attention to something that's the most egregious assassination that we have seen in a locked facility while someone was in custody, a human being was in custody and extremely vulnerable. He could not be any more vulnerable than he was being rear cuffed. For those of you who are watching, if you sit at your chair right now and talk where I'm sitting, just put your hands behind your back. A lot of you might do some physical therapy and your shoulder hurts. Imagine being rear cuffed and both ankles being shackled while you're being abused, assaulted, and assassinated. And I'm shocked that any human would do this to another human. To me, it appears pre-calculated, premeditated, because there were many opportunities for this to stop. As a sergeant, I have beyond guilt as a supervisor, and I had nothing to do with it. As a human, this should have stopped. And as a supervisor, those supervisors, I can't even call them supervisors, those individuals that had hash marks and chevrons knew that this behavior was allowed, and they allowed it. And their subordinates, no offense, gentlemen, because I really never pull rank, but their subordinates pushed the supervisor. DutyRon, you highlighted that in one of your lives, where one of the correction officers, I didn't want to say officer, individuals, pushed the supervisor back. The supervisor knew this was not good because he leaned in. That alone made everything even more culpable and worse, and we'll discuss it on the live. I thank you for bringing me in. I haven't been quiet intentionally. It was just situationally, but I'll tell you, ever since I saw that video, I cannot watch it again unless we're doing a live. I can't voluntarily watch it. And I feel guilty for something we didn't even do, just watching this. So I cannot imagine his family. I'm heartbroken for them. And I pray that your voices will continue sounding loud in upstate New York so that a criminal prosecution will come very soon.
Yeah. Remember, thank you. Thank you. Remember what I said, justice delayed is justice denied. And every day that this goes on without somebody being arrested for the assault and murder is a travesty in itself and also a crime in itself. Where are our politicians? Why have they had one press conference and then they're done? Where are all of our elected officials? How come the news is burying this? Okay. Why? I don't understand why this is occurring. And every day that this goes on without there being arrests, it's just eroding the public confidence in our elected officials, in our law enforcement, in our criminal justice system. This has to stop. Arrests need to be made, and they should have been made. They should have been made weeks ago.
Yeah, because the fact of the matter is, and I talked about this many, many times, and thank you to everybody that's here. And again, like I said, YouTube loves to suppress these stories, and so does the mainstream media. They're busy talking about a lot of other things. And listen, the fires in California, we send prayers. And listen, the people in California that are going through what they're going through there, it's horrific. It's tragic. But to bury this story and not even give it a minute of nightly news, it's just so, it breaks my heart. And I have had hundreds of emails from people who have been beaten inside prisons throughout the United States. And many of them are voicing their concerns and their opinions on what they went through in New York State. So New York State Department of Corrections has a problem, and it's got a problem that's been ongoing for a long, long time. And not only has the Brooks family reached out, and I have spoken with Robert Brooks' father myself on the phone and text message back and forth with cousins. And though that family is heartbroken because their loved one, they watched their loved one on clips, 3 or 4 30-minute clips of body cam footage being beaten by New York State correction officials who are supposed to be there to protect inmates and make sure that everything goes smoothly behind the walls inside prisons. And that's not what we saw here. So the shocking thing here is that, like you said, Ed, where are the elected officials locally there? Why aren't they out marching with the people that are out in the freezing cold? There was a protest on Wednesday outside of Marcy, and I did not see one politician, not one person from the community that represents that district, and shouting from the rooftops. Why is not one of these officers under arrest? We watched a murder happen on video. There's no excuse. If it was me, if it was you, if it was anybody else, and I keep saying this, we would have a posse of cops out in front of our house. And the second that we stepped out, we'd be locked up. And if we didn't come out, they would kick our door in and hog tie us and drag us into jail. And that's what's sickening about this thing is like, what is the wait? Ed, you and I talked before we went live, and so did we spoke today, Amazing Ed. What's the delay? What in God's name that we saw? Why are the prosecutors, the district attorney in Onondaga, why is Mr. Fitzpatrick not even coming out and giving a press conference? Hey, we're working on this. We are going to bring these people to justice. Just give us another minute or give us whatever. But that's not even, they're not communicating. And that's the crazy part.
The primary responsibility for all levels of government, local, county, state, federal, is the safety of its citizens and residents. Okay, is the protection of its citizens and residents. Okay, this man, yes, he was a criminal. He committed a crime. He went to trial. A jury of his peers convicted him. He was sentenced to 12 years. Okay, he was in his 8th year of 12. Okay, these guys that did this to him became his judge, jury, and executioners. He was not sentenced to death. All right, he was sentenced to 12 years, and he did not deserve this. What I'm saying, folks, is our elected officials need to be held to account for what's going on here. I believe the governor lost her right to govern. I believe the elected officials in this area here should be also recalled. Okay, the state assembly and the legislature of the state of New York that represents this community should also be recalled and lose their positions as elected officials. I believe the appointees, the bureaucrats, the embedded bureaucrats in the correctional facility, all of them need to go. Okay.
Amen to that, brother. I mean, we could go on and on about this all night, but I want to play the rally that was held outside of Marcy Correctional. It's a short clip, and it's coverage, and it gets to show the people outside of New York and outside of that area, because it is 300 miles north of us here. Okay, it's a far distance from where we live, but it is up there. It's in the middle of the of New York, and most people that are outside of the United States, they don't have a clue. This is what's going on, and this is the pot that is boiling over. It's like put a pot of water on the stove and turn the burner on high. This is what's happening up at Marcy Correctional. It is a boiling pot of water, and people are upset, and I don't blame them one bit. I'm mad as hell. And this is not even a family member of mine. I'm a human being. I have compassion. This to me is just, it just makes me want to cry. It makes me want to break down and cry when I see something like this and I see nothing done. When you have something, this is what I would call a ground ball. This is a ground ball collar. This is something that should have been done weeks ago. This is day 36, and I'm mad. I'm really mad, guys. Let's play this. Here we go.
Robert Brooks at Marcy Correctional Facility. A rally was held in the street outside the facility by the Unified Black Coalition. Eyewitness News reporter Jessica Landman has more.
About a month ago, an inmate named Robert Brooks, being transported from Mohawk Correctional Facility to Marcy Correctional Facility, was wrongfully killed during transportation. Today, the Unified Black Coalition held a rally at Marcy Correctional Facility to protest what happened to Brooks.
We had to come here today for this family, for our people, Black people. That's what this is about, racism. That's what this is about, hate. When they brought him in there, they revived him. We seen it. You got to go by it in stills. And then they continue to torture him. They murdered him. We seen it. The whole world has seen it. This correction department has never been exposed like this. But why aren't these killers arrested?
Why?
We have one judge ruled at Kingsley, I believe. It was so dangerous to himself and society that they took all his firearms. But they didn't arrest him.
He's talking about, Ed, that move that they made, and I highlighted this with you, where the district attorney, well, the attorney general, that was when Letitia James was on this, they decided to take away this guy's guns. All their guns should have been removed from them, and they all should have been arrested. And this man is this man is highlighting this here. This is Wednesday.
No, that's right. And they say he was part responsible. They took all his firearms, but they didn't arrest him.
No,
that's right. And they say he was part responsible for the death of Robert Brooks, but they took his guns, saying he's a threat to society and himself, yet he's still free to walk around. That's right. Free to be at home with his family, while Robert Brooks' family is here in the cold, and he's in the cold grave.
Yeah.
How is this? Anybody do a crime right now, you're getting arrested right now.
Right now.
Without any video footage. We have the footage. They don't even have that for the Holocaust. Come on, we got the footage.
Yes.
And they still not arrested. We come here to tell Utica, New York, Marcy, New York, you don't get away with this. We're going to patrol your community.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to patrol your blocks.
Yeah.
We're bringing people from other states.
Right.
We're going to fix racism in Marcy, New York. Whoa. Every prison that continues this abuse, we go in there like today. And we coming in your communities. We coming in your towns, and you're not to bother us. Don't tread on us. We're going to stand our ground. Yeah. We're going to stand here today. It's a disgrace. Every white person in America, this ain't racist, should be on your knees praying every night thanking God that black people ain't seeking revenge. You owe us that. Be on your knees praying every night. God, please get us to another day from black revenge. If anybody got a right for revenge and justice in America, it's us. We already see that the system involved in this is trying to only get 1 or 2 officers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They put that out, and we posted it. They put it out for Kingsley to say that he's a danger. That's why they took his guns. Okay? So what they're trying to do is get 1 or 2 officers. That's the feeling they got out there.
Let's go bad apple.
We want all of them. We want every officer that works here, that's been working here. We want this whole facility revamped. We want a whole new staff put in. And then we still want this facility closed.
I want them all to be arrested.
You hear that?
I want them all locked up.
Today,
They should have been locked up the first day.
Yeah.
What is they investigating? Tell me.
We got
Anybody
that.
see the tape? No, they. What? Tell me. Please tell me.
I can guarantee you.
They not investigating nothing. They whatever they doing, they stalling too. But it's time for them to be locked up. Come on.
You know, it's funny, Ed, and Amazing Ant. I'm going to put us back on for a second. You see these Channel 2, Channel 9, right? I looked at their coverage of this, right? They did cover this. This is where I'm getting it from. It has 300 views, 200 views. It's the media that doesn't want the message to get out there. And these people have a valid argument. This woman that's holding that sign said, why aren't they arrested day one? And I said the same thing. Well, we all agree. It's just at what point do the powers that be decide that this is okay to leave this 36 days with these murderers at home with their families for Christmas, New Year's, and every day they're free to go, come and go. But Robert Brooks' family's got no justice here. I mean, like you said, Ed, I give his son and his only brother, Jared, and Robert Brooks Jr. a lot of credit because they were very calm at that press conference and they were well spoken. But these people here are mad as hell, and I don't blame them one bit.
No, I agree 100%. You know, I just can't wrap my head around what the hell is going on and why the media, who normally would take this and run with it like, you know, for days on end, you know, is just sweeping this under the rug.
May I?
Yeah, sure. And look at this comment, Mark Jones. I'm from the area. They won't get a conviction here. I hope you're wrong, Mark, but, you know, I respect you're from the area. Go ahead, Amazing Ant.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing that, because I was going to say something similar. It appears that politicians commingle their business with the media. If this was New York City, it would be a lot more organized protests. There'd be a lot more political dynamic, a lot more in terms of a politician's mindset. We can't block bridges. We can't have this problem. We can't have well-known areas, Times Square, Union Square, under siege by protesters. We're isolated in upstate New York. These are rural towns where, unfortunately, politicians do not emphasize or put stock into their communities. They assume that a certain community will vote a certain way, will feel a certain way, or only a handful of protesters will go out there and this is an inmate. Where's the humanity here? He's no different than someone on Park Avenue being murdered. However, and sadly, politicians put weight on that. The media puts weight on that. And I hate to say this, Ronnie, but I'm going to say it. We know all lives matter, but unfortunately, the politicians, the very people they say they're fighting for, are the very people they're not defending. And in this case, Mr. Robert Brooks, an inmate, a Black American, an inmate who was convicted of a violent crime, and they're assuming because of his conviction that he is worthy of dying and being assassinated in that way. So there's a lot of layers, and Ed hit it, the chat hit it. And I just have to say to someone in the chat who made a comment on the last live, they asked me directly. So if they're watching, I forgot the name. They said, what did I feel about this in terms of the political theme? You know, if this was a race motivated. And I said, what I feel is murder is murder. As a human, as a New York State EMT, and we can talk about that later with the sternum rub and some of the actual dynamics, but also as a sergeant, a police officer and a sergeant who spent a lot of time, and you know this, Ronnie, when we would transport prisoners, and Ed, you know this, to the booking, central booking, and the jails. I cannot even ever imagine any of this behavior crossing my mind, no matter how much someone would spit at me or curse at me or yell at me or be hostile. This is beyond shocking, and you guys hit the nail on the head. It's all on camera, and so did the protesters. They said this is all on camera and nothing's being done. I think it's politically motivated. I think that the AG and all the attorney general and all the powers in New York State shoved it off, because we all know there was a lawsuit that was settled December 5th, 4 days before Mr. Brooks died, that involved some of these officers for similar abuse and brutality. So I'm wondering, was there a agreement, a settlement done between the politicians and the unions for the correction officers? I'm going to explore that.
Yeah. I certainly hope that's not the case, but it does something smells really fishy, and it's really not good. Ed, you were going to say something?
Yeah. Stop calling them corrections officers. All right.
Yeah.
Because these are criminals that were hiding behind a badge and a uniform.
They're murderers.
You're right.
Okay.
They're murderers now.
That's right.
And I'll say that all day, every day. I will not refer to them as
You're right.
officers. These are cold-blooded murderers, and what we saw there was not something that they did for the first time. They were very
absolutely.
They were very comfortable in what they were doing, and this type of atmosphere seems to run rampant in Marcy, because we had I played on my last video just a week ago, last Saturday, just a little shy of a week, one day. I played Long Island Audit, went up there, and the attitude and the stance that the sergeant came out, another sergeant, a bunch of correction officers, they were, and he simply was kind of being aggressive, but really respectful. He said, "Can you guys denounce what we saw, what the world saw on video, on body cam?" And they just didn't answer him. Let's play this piece, because this is some local coverage. Again, this has about 300 views, but let's play it.
Robert Brooks' family is filing a civil rights lawsuit. It's against the 17 corrections officers and nurses who either took part in the beating or did nothing to stop it.
Robert Brooks died December 10th, just hours after being beaten by guards in the infirmary at Marcy Correctional Facility. Today, News 10 NBC investigative reporter Jennifer Lukey spoke with his son and brother for the first time.
The Brooks family and their attorneys spoke with reporters here at the Doubletree Hotel in Henrietta earlier today. Robert Brooks's son and brother telling me that the past month has been devastating for their family.
It's hard for anyone to watch the video of Robert Brooks being beaten by correction officers. But for those who knew and loved him, it was almost unbearable.
But as painful as it is important that the world sees these images. They have the power to spark the change we need.
Had you known before that any of the circumstances that led to your father and your brother's death?
And for the most part, they wouldn't give us any answers. So I would say for the first week or so, we were getting all of the news through the news in real time, which is, I find, kind of disrespectful a little bit. My brother had done 8 of the 12 years that he was sentenced to as seen fit in the eyes of the law. But the 17 individuals at Marcy Correctional Facility gave him a death sentence, and that's just not fair.
Robert, you mentioned you visited your father in jail, in prison, during his time that he was incarcerated. Did he ever, to you, express concerns about his own safety behind bars?
No, my father was very protective. And even if he did feel he wasn't safe, he wouldn't tell me, because he know how much I care about him and how worried I would have been.
Now the family says it's fighting for justice. Today, they filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the 17 people who participated in the beating or did nothing to stop it. They're also watching and waiting for criminal charges to be filed.
The bottom line is, yes, we want them to get prosecuted, but we want them to do it the right way instead of not rushing it. So as far as the prosecution goes, we're trying to give them a little leeway. But yes, we want answers.
You know, my brother always used to tell me to err is human, to forgive is divine. And I'm not at forgiveness yet. I'll just say there's consequences and repercussions for your actions. And at some point, those are coming, and I hope you're prepared.
Technically, the state is not allowed to be named in a federal civil rights lawsuit. That was what was filed today. But the attorneys for the Brooks family tell me they are preparing a separate lawsuit to sue the state of New York and the Department of Corrections, hoping to get some systematic changes within the prison system. In Henrietta.
So I wanted to go to you, Ed, on the lawsuit. Okay, so they had two attorneys there. I don't know if you watched the full press conference that they held, but look, his brother, who's 11 years younger than Mr. Brooks, Robert Brooks, when he was murdered, was 43. Brother, 33 years old, talked very, very well and talked strongly about his brother and how he feels about this. He said he's anywhere close to forgiveness. But this lawsuit, there were two of them. It looks like they sued the state and then they went civil, right? With civil rights violation.
Right. So federal and state.
Federal and state, right. So this is a start, but this is something that we should see after these guys are arrested. These attorneys said, no, we're not going to wait. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, and and you know what? And by them not waiting, that gives them discovery. That gives them the ability to do depositions. That gives them a lot of things now to do for their case. But what's going to end up happening? It's going to push the district attorney to wrap up their case quicker.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because if they don't, then these civil cases will get ahead of the criminal case.
Yes.
Right.
And that's why the attorneys went forward, because within that first 2 weeks of no criminal prosecution, we know historically, and I know personally, and also working for the police department, civil cases will generate, as Ed Wallace said, a district attorney, hopefully prosecution or investigation. And unfortunately, with this type of case, that's what they had to do. They had to almost go reverse to do this, especially, Ed, as we mentioned, or you mentioned the last live or two lives with the federal part with the civil rights. For everyone who didn't do something, just like the George Floyd civil rights federal suit, they're all culpable. And I won't steal your thunder. We'll talk about it with the clip of the attorney that we know from corrections to talk about that.
Yeah, and she's going to come on and explain some of this stuff. I wanted to say hello to everybody in the chat and thank everybody for being here. Thank you for becoming a new member. Paul K., thank you for the great gifts that you sent from down under. I appreciate you. It took me a long time to get to the P.O. box, and I got a ton of stuff. Chasing is in the chat. Good to see you. Thank you, Tracy, for being here. I know you're disgusted with this, as we all are. This is some of the, I can say in my 30 some odd years with being in law enforcement and also out of, in retirement as a civilian, this is some of the most shocking. This is the shocking. This video takes the cake is what I'm trying to say. I don't think that there's ever been a corrections body cam video of multiple officers committing murder, beating an inmate to death. Gets no worse than this, ladies and gentlemen. If you can't trust the people who are there to make sure you're safe, who the hell is safe? And I'm going to tell you that those hundreds of emails that I've received on DutyRon.com, it's mothers, it's brothers, it's sisters, it's fathers, it's cousins, it's friends are just horrified and so scared for their loved ones behind those walls. Now, this is what this has done. This has made all of America afraid of corrections because of this action. They have loved ones that are locked up, and now the trust is now completely severed. And when you have the component of the justice system failing to move, we always talk about that long arm of the law that's going to reach out and get the bad guys. Well, where the hell are they here? They need to get these guys and put them in bracelets and lock them up, put them underneath Marcy, throw them in general population. I know that's not going to happen, but that's what they deserve. This
is not a cold case. There's no mystery here. Okay. This is an out and out beatdown leading to murder. Okay. By multiple perpetrators, and the others who stood by and did nothing are guilty of what's the charge?
Acting concert, Complacency, I think the federal charges.
No, it's official misconduct.
Official misconduct, but also complacency, acting in concert.
Yeah, but they have an official responsibility. If you if you are present and there's another police officer or correction officer that's committing a crime, you are now obligated to stop that crime from happening.
Exactly. Exactly.
Goodbye.
Especially as a supervisor.
Two supervisors moved out of the way, and one of them got the tap, like you said, amazing Aunt. He got the tap from one of his boys in the beatdown squad.
Like,
hey,
step
move
back.
out of the way,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna. And this is what this is standard operating procedure. It's sickening. It's disgusting on so many levels. All good law enforcement and all good correction officers who do the job, men and women, are now. It's a stain on their record, and it makes their job so much more difficult. I always used to say this, Ed, when we were active, and we would have these bad cops and these bad actors that would go out there and do stuff. I would always say, now my tour tonight is going to be that much more difficult because the citizens that we serve, the community in which we serve, you got to hear from them. What are you going to do? Kill me? What are you going to do? You going to steal my money? Or are you going to take?
Yeah.
I mean, and I never let that sway me, because I always just said, I'm just going to, continue on what I'm doing and do it the right way. But this is a problem. This is a problem on a this is multi-layered. We see a crime as civilians. We see this body cam footage, and then we see no action by the district attorneys. Nobody wants to step in and say, let's take these scumbags off the street. Let's take these murderous monsters and put them where they belong. Because again, as we all know, if I go into a grocery store and I beat someone to death in line because they got pissed off I got pissed off at them, or they spit on me, or if they bumped into me, and I'm on video doing that, my ass is locked up that day.
Well, yeah, it's the same as like if this was a gang on a subway platform doing a beatdown, causing the death, and we got it all on videotape, they would be arrested. They would have been identified and arrested, make your head spin.
And gang assault, felonious charge, gang assault, at least, obviously murder, but gang assault, even for those who weren't physically touching him, they're all a part of it.
Yeah. Hey, Evie, good to see you. All right, YouTube, I already got the thing from you, the notice from YouTube. This is sensitive information, sensitive topic we're discussing, but I don't give a shit. We're just going to continue on with it. Here's more coverage from another local WRGB news.
Well, good evening. The family of Robert Brooks taking direct legal action now against the corrections officers who they say are responsible for his brutal beating death. CBS 6's Brandon Sapardi is live for us in the studio tonight with details on this lawsuit that we're finding out about today. Bree.
Greg, this lawsuit isn't just about getting accountability. It's about exposing what they call a pattern of abuse inside the prison system. Robert Brooks' family filed a lawsuit in federal court against 17 defendants who they claim were directly and indirectly involved in this brutal beating, including the commissioner of the State Department of Corrections and the governor herself. The December 9th beating of Robert Brooks has sparked widespread outrage, not just with his family, but the public. Now you can see in this video, Brooks was restrained as officers continued to punch, kick, and assault him. This lawsuit filed this morning details not only the acts of hatred and violence they claim were perpetuated against Brooks, but numerous instances displaying a pattern of similar conduct that have been reported for years and never adequately addressed.
But the 17 individuals at Marcy Correctional Facility gave him a death sentence, and that's just not fair. We want these killers prosecuted, and we want change. Big bro, we love you. We won't stop fighting for justice and accountability in your name.
Although the video of Robert's killing is extremely difficult to watch, it holds a mirror up to the violence and abuse Marcy prisoners face on a regular basis. It shows what Marcy correctional officers will do when they believe no one is watching. It paints an all too real picture of the rampant abuses that New York prisoners have reported for years.
They're hoping this is the beginning of true reform of New York's prison system that they say has been long driven by a culture of violence and intimidation. A preliminary autopsy revealed Brooks died of asphyxia. The family's attorneys also represented Daniel Prude, who died in 2020 after being restrained by Rochester police officers.
Now, Ed, you mentioned, and we mentioned on a previous show, the autopsy also further mentions that Mr. Brooks, Mr. Robert L. Brooks, died at the hands of another. And what does that spell, Ed Wallace? What does that spell out?
That is the medical legal definition for homicide.
Homicide, yep.
In
So
cause and manner of investigation, you have homicide, you have accidental, you have suicide, and then undetermined. So they said it here. They didn't use the word homicide, but they gave the definition of it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what more they need. Listen, there's a freelance a journalist. I believe I'm not sure the area where he is located, but his name is JB Nicholas. And he did a video. I'm not going to play it because it actually shows all the different body cam footages from each individual for these 30-minute clips. But he went over it minute by minute, and he did his own, little synopsis. And I believe that he was an inmate at one point during his time. But he has a website, the freelancenews.org. And I'm going to just put this up here because and listen, this is not like something commonly done what we do, but in this situation here, the names of these officers are publicly available. But there's many people that have reached out to me and said, "Hey, Ron and Ed, can you post pictures with their names?" And this person did it. And it's on his website. It's the freelancenews.org. I'll link it in the description. So if you click on, these articles, it gives their names with their faces. And he took this from the body cam footage. And look, this one in the middle is just horrifying to see. This correctional officer is choking him out with all his might. And he also includes the nurse here. So this is a real comprehensive, and look at this. The video that he uploaded to YouTube, he's only got I think 100 subscribers or less. This is what ours get each time that we do these. This video is age restricted and only available on YouTube. Learn more. So you have to be signed in to see it. Therefore, they throttle it. Nobody gets to see it. And when you click on this guy's video, I think it has 18 views. And it was one of the most comprehensive ones that I've seen because he goes into details talking about the beating and what these monster savage former correctional officers, these murderers, what they did to Robert Brooks. And I'm going to link it in the description. You guys can all go and check it out. But, and in this article, he actually puts a synopsis of everything that happened. And I read thoroughly through this article before we went live. And this guy did some great coverage. And of course, the powers that be, Google and YouTube, they for some reason don't want people to get this information. It's just mind-blowing to me. Jennifer Nobles, a platinum member for over 45 months, she says this needs to be shared around the world. Horrible behavior and should not be tolerated. This father lost his life to these monsters. Absolutely. And as Ed and we all have said this loud and clear, it doesn't matter what crime was committed or what he did, which we don't know what he did or didn't do to these corrections officers, whether he spit on. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he did. Murder is murder, and it's never justified in any setting. I don't care who you are, what you are, or what job you have. It doesn't give you the right to take another person's life.
DutyRon.
Yeah, go.
I saw the freelance article you put, and I quickly counted. I see the 15 perpetrators, murderers, and the video shows a lot of people in the room. But to see it, 15 people do this, I have to keep reminding everyone, sit down at your chair and put your arms behind your back like you're rear cuffed. It's very uncomfortable. But 15 people in that small room, 8-foot room, it's so much more mind-boggling that not one person in that room thought, hey, let's cut it out. And they all had a defined role in this murder, as you guys talked about when it first came out, from rubbing on the chest, grabbing the legs, the pulling his pants. They all had roles that they looked very well equipped and trained in. And I say that facetiously. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Schmitty says, please, she's a member 38 months. Thank you, Schmitty, for all of your support. Please tell us, what can we do? We got to do something.
You can
We
write
talked
to the
about this
prosecutor. You can write to the prosecutor. You can write to the elected officials in this town. You could write to the governor, and just air your thoughts about what transpired. Air your thoughts about what their lack of action on this.
Yeah.
We talked about this today with DutyRon. DutyRon and I were actually mapping it out. I told him we have some limitations going on right now with traveling, but I said, DutyRon, I have miles. Maybe I could take a one-day flight up there, planes, trains, and automobiles. And then we sat here thinking, all right, what am I going to do when I get up there? I don't mind going to a correctional facility. But then I thought, bingo, what Ed said. The DAs have to be, the protests and the letters have to go to the DAs. The confrontation or the free speech part is to reach to the DAs. So I want to tell everyone here, I'm drafting my own letter. Ronnie, I didn't tell you, but I was so bothered about this today. And then after speaking to this attorney friend from corrections, I'm going to run it by her. But I'm writing a letter to the DA. Was it Oswego or Onondaga?
He's in Onondaga,
Onondaga.
district attorney. His name is Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
And he's been there for 30 years. This is the names of the original 13 or 14. This was early on, and the extra 4 that were added were 2 sergeants, a female, I believe it was a female, and a male sergeant. They came after Robert Brooks, the beating stopped, but they came, and Ed and Sarge, we could talk about this. The 4 additionals that are added in, they came and they did not make a report. They did not question it. They did not say, hey, what the F happened here? They just went about their jobs and walked away from it. And you can't do that. If you see something, it's almost like you're a mandated reporter. If you see
They are mandated reporters.
if you see something that's fugazi, you can't just turn your back on it and say, oh, well, another one bites the dust. And that's what those 4 did. And shame on them. They make themselves look bad. They make the profession look bad, and they make it really, really hard for people to trust them. Let's go to the super chats because there's a ton of them that came in. I want to start. I'll work my way back. Evie323, mom of the history chick. She is a great, great supporter. She sends 10 and she says, I'm just seeing this for the first time. We're 36 days into it, but again, I'm not saying this that I'm shocked at you just seeing it, but she says, I can't believe this happened. Oh my God, I'm so disturbed. Very late to the story. It's not your fault. Guess what? The news, and as Ed and I said in the opening and Amazing Ed, this should be on national news. This should be played for people every day that there's not arrest happening. This should be played every day. ABC is doing their nightly news at 6:30, right? World News Tonight, right?
2020.
Yeah, 2020. All of these outlets, not one blurb, not even a 30-second piece, not even 10 seconds about Robert Brooks. He is someone who is just a forgotten soul to them. They don't care. And I'm going to stay on this. I'm going to cover it until something is done. And I'm going to continue to try to help this family make change, because Robert Brooks Sr., his father, I got on the phone with him on Wednesday, and he said something so profound to me. He said, Ron, and he's a pastor. He said, you know something, Ron? A check from the state or from the government is not, my son's death would be in vain. We need to make change. We do not want his death to be in vain. We want change. We don't just want to walk away from a payday from this. We want the powers that be to make the change so inmates across the United States, across this great nation, are safe. And that was just like so compelling to hear that from him. And he wasn't angry. He wasn't using expletives or anything like that. He just said, we want this system, which is broken and corrupt, to be changed. We want these people out of there, and we want everyone to be held accountable. And that's all anybody is asking for. Jeff, thank you for the super chat. On that video, one of those monsters is smiling. It's sickening. I wonder how many times this has happened. The video pisses me off the more I see it. Absolutely. Angela S is in the chat, member for over 22 months. There you go. The membership still stays 22 months. She says, how are you all? We're pissed off. We're mad as hell. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore, right? You're going to yell out of the window. No, we need to do more than that. We need to, as I said, start a letter campaign, start writing these elected officials, the governor, the correctional facility, officials, this district attorney, and say, get off your ass and do something.
Yeah.
You know, the governor just touted, Governor Hochul, New York State governor, just touted that they're putting more NYPD police officers in the subway because crime is high. And I work midnights, and notoriously crime is higher. But she's been very silent about correctional facilities miles from her residence, her office. And that's whom I really would like to direct a lot of this rage, these questions, and anger to, because someone goes away to jail and they're not worth the same level of protection that people out in the public are entitled to. I think that if anything, they should be offered, if not more protection, because of the duress of being, locked up in the facility, being in tight quarters. So I think that Governor Hochul turning a blind eye is a very loud message and of disrespect and a slap to the families and to the victim of Mr. Brooks.
Oh yeah, 100%. So we're going to have, I'll probably on Tuesday, if she's available, Monday or Tuesday, Serena Townsend. She is a former New York City Corrections. What was she, commissioner?
She's a commissioner of internal affairs and trials and investigation for correctional facilities in New York City.
Right. And she was also a former prosecutor in the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office, Kings County. But she made an appearance on Finest Unfiltered.
Podcast.
Right, the podcast. And they asked her, these are two retired lieutenants from the NYPD. And they asked her if she can make a comment. This video was not about Robert Brooks, but they asked her if she could make a comment about Robert Brooks. And she said, I would love to. And I since reached out to her, thanks to Ant putting me onto this podcast. I reached out to her and she immediately answered me back. And she was like, I'd love to come on and talk about it. So she can give us the defense attorney, the prosecutor side, and she also investigated corruption in the New York City Department of Corrections. So let's listen to what she had to say. First name is Serena. I can't wait to have her on as a guest because she's awesome.
Traumatized, and it was so institutionalized that they didn't care. They're like, you could send me to do anything. It doesn't matter. Don't even explain that. And I'm like, no.
Okay.
On it. First of all, I want to say in the 6 years that I worked on Rikers Island investigating those exact type of misconduct, I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Oh, I didn't get it from the beginning. I want to get it from where.
129.
Yeah.
And,
They were like, do you need anything else, please?
You're like, I'll do anything. I was like, okay, no problem. So, but I don't know if you could speak on this at all. I don't know if you have anybody retained, but just you're curious. I in full disclosure, I watched some of the video about the Robert Brooks incident. I thought that it was terrible. I don't know that if you could speak on that. But just, if you could just give like your professional take on that.
Oh my God, that's such a good question. Yeah, that was really, really bad. Okay, so my take on it. First of all, I want to say in the 6 years that I worked on Rikers Island investigating those exact type of misconduct, I've never seen anything like that in my life. All right. So, I wanted to be very clear to your listeners that is not what I was seeing on Rikers Island. And Rikers gets a really bad rap, and some of it's deserved, but, that was not happening. Maybe that was happening before the consent decree, because I will give credit to the consent decree in that they made sure that the place was cameraed up everywhere. And so we were able to see more things. My professional opinion there is, honestly, though, some of those guys should be facing murder charges. That's how bad it was. I could not believe what I saw. It was egregious. Listen, officers need to use force sometimes on people, but what I saw was somebody who was basically dying at the hands of these officers, and they kept going. I don't know, you know, we always say we need to see what happened before the body worn cameras. We want all the context. I normally agree with that. But from what I saw enough of the before and the during to know that what I saw was a crime, most likely murder on most of their parts. And you guys know when you have those acting in concert charges, everybody is liable to be charged with murder, even the ones who didn't, you know, do all of the most egregious things to that man. But he was completely helpless. You cannot justify that level of force against somebody like that. To keep going, I mean, you're seeing like the kick to his groin. You're seeing like the punches to the face, the choking, like he was like a rag doll at some point, and they're slamming him around. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Even in the cases that I prosecuted, the murder cases that I prosecuted, or even, you know, was exposed to as a DA that I didn't personally prosecute. This is one of the most egregious things that I've seen. And it doesn't matter, you know, who you are. It doesn't matter if you have that shield. It doesn't matter that he was, you know, he had been convicted of something pretty egregious too. None of that matters, because you don't decide his fate. It is your job to keep him alive and to keep him, you know, to give him his constitutional rights, and you killed him.
Yeah. So she says it straight out. You killed him. And I agree 100%.
Ron, can I just interject real quickly?
Sure.
For everyone who's watching the podcast that it just came from, this is a plug. I'm associated with that podcast. In fact, that's the first podcast I was on before DutyRon. Those two lieutenants I worked with in the NYPD, and they're unfiltered. They left, and you can watch it and subscribe. But the reason why they had her come on, for those of you wondering why are they having someone from correctional facility, internal affairs, this podcast is the finest, unfiltered. And what it is, the NYPD is called the finest, but they're exposing a lot of things happening that you may be reading about in the paper within the NYPD, within New York City, within New York State, and within the country. And as they expose the truth, this is one of the stories that's tied into obvious corruption. There's no hiding or denying it. So when I saw Miss Townsend come on the podcast, I immediately told the lieutenants, we have to contact her for DutyRon, because DutyRon also highlights, as you know, in his show, facts, truth, right, and compassion. And I really believe this attorney is going to answer questions that some of you have, and also highlight the voice of justice to Mr. Brooks. Maybe she can help us navigate that.
Absolutely. And you know what? She went after the bad correction officers in within Rikers Island. And it's not just on the island, it's all of the boroughs, you know, the boat in the Bronx and all the different facilities. That it's not just Rikers Island exclusively. She was in charge of the entire Department of Corrections. You brought up earlier, Amazing Aunt, the lawsuit that was successfully filed and won in 2024, right before Robert Brooks was brutally murdered. And those were inmates, 28 or more, that were brutally beaten in 2016 in Mid-State Correctional, which is right across the street from Marcy.
Marcy.
It's that whole hub. It's Marcy, Mid-State, and Mohawk. They're all in that hub. And some of these scumbag correction, the murderers inside Marcy, were named perhaps in that lawsuit. And Ricardo Moore was one of those inmates that got a beating. He reached out to me. I've had many conversations with him, and I was supposed to have him on last Thursday, but Ed was working, and I wanted to have Ed because he wanted to speak with Ed. So we're going to have him come on, and he's going to talk about this beatdown squad and what he experienced as an inmate in Mid-State Correctional, which is right across. He told me the correction officers go from Mid-State to Marcy. They kind of interchange them, and they work at Mohawk, and those three are in that hub, they call it. So these guys, and Ed, you pointed it out, and that's what's great about having many eyes. Like, I love having Ed as a co-host and as a fellow brother, and you coming on as a guest, because we all see different stuff. Like Ed said, look at the hashtags on these guys' arms. Some of them have 20 years in corrections. They got, the one guy had like 5 hash marks. That's 5 years each one of those hash marks. So these scumbags have been around and have been able to exist in this system, and that's what makes it so egregious is that for many, many years, we've been hearing from people since we covered this, that this has been going on for decades, arguably decades.
Ron, do you remember when we worked in Warrant Division and you guys would go on the trip team to go to different correctional facilities? I don't remember who it was. Anyway, I think it might have been Daytour, but I remember someone went out to Mohawk. And I remember some of these inmates, I would hear the stories when you guys would come back. These inmates would say they were happy to be back in New York City and they were happy to be back at Rikers. If anyone knows about Rikers or don't know, you'll see Miss Townsend, Serena. But these inmates wanted to leave upstate New York and be back in New York City in a more congested jail with less subpar conditions because they had to get away. And now we're beginning to see some of the reasons why.
Yeah, they would say to me when I would pick them up from the various state correctional facilities, get me the F out of here. I'll go to Rikers and do my little 10 days or get my ROR, but I want to get out of here. And they would never really, go and expand on them, what they experienced. Sure. But they were just like, I will take Rikers any day over this state correctional facility. And when guys would say on the street to me, I do not want to go back upstate. It was for a reason. And this was the very reason, because these correction officers are brutal. Here, L in the chat says it's time to shut down Marcy. Now, I have a little caveat to that. I don't think that it's a great idea to shut down prisons, because there are bad people within those walls of those prisons that have killed people, right? There's bad guys and girls inside these correctional facilities. You can't just shut them down, because what are you going to do? Just let them out and let them roam the streets? Right. I agree that they should clean house. Ed, when we would have precincts where there was alleged corruption or there was identified corruption, what would they do? Get rid of the COs, get rid of the XOs, get rid of all the executive staff, and transfer everybody out and put in a whole new executive staff, because it starts at the top.
One time they had the big scandal in the 7-7 precinct. Okay. Yes. Henry Winters and the Buddy Boys, all that shit, right? They transferred the entire precinct overnight.
Say shit. Everybody.
I know. Ed said that.
Yeah.
Oh, hell no.
Could you imagine? They transferred the entire precinct. Yes. Okay, but here's the problem. Here's the problem with that. And I hate to bring this analogy up, but it's like the Catholic Church. I'm Catholic, right? And I saw brewing issues with the priest scandal. Okay, so what did they do? Did they deal with the individual perpetrators of these crimes correctly? No, they started bouncing them around from church to church to church. Right. Instead of
somebody else's problem.
Right. Instead of taking and dealing with those individual perpetrators in the Catholic Church and dealing with them with the criminal justice system and getting them out of the Catholic Church, their response was to move them around to another church and pray that they didn't do those crimes again. And that's no good. And the same thing with these guys. We got to identify the good. We got to identify the bad. We got to identify who knew what and who did what. Okay. And who, more importantly, who didn't do anything but knew.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And then fire them and
arrest them.
Yeah.
You gotta weed the garden, as I always say. You gotta get rid of these bad ones,
Well,
and you part of the investigation has to be identifying all of the bad ones and get them the hell out of there. Not transfer them, not put them in some other place where they can continue to do that kind of shit. Get rid of them, fire them, get them out of there, and get new blood in there that's going to do it the right way and train them the right way. So that's the story. Look, Ed's in the chat. Look, it's Eric Dim.
Eric Dim, Lieutenant Dim. Hi, boss. He was
good to see you, LT. Everyone. Thank you for joining. We just played a little bit of your coverage and your interview the other day. So it was great to have you on here, and thank you for being in the chat. All right, a little bit of a self-plug. This is coverage that Kristen put together for us, and then we'll close it out with some questions from the audience. But this is a little uploaded video that we did the other day. It's just some snippets. I'm going to play this, and we'll be right back on here with you guys. So it's a little bit of me and a little bit of press. And this is not their first rodeo. ladies and gentlemen, this is not their first rodeo. This is something that the news is not talking about. They ran the story 2 weeks ago, and now they're not talking about it. It's crazy. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing that people are just not wanting to talk about this. And I'm going to shout it out from the rooftops. Listen, the good correction officers that are out there, men and women that are doing their jobs, I salute them. It's not an easy job. But these ones that we witnessed on camera, there's no way. There's no way that they could be free.
Good morning. My name is Robert Brooks Jr. Today, my family is going through an unimaginable amount of pain. No one should have to experience what we are experiencing. The murder of my father by the people who are supposed to keep him safe. But we are also feeling incredible support for our community here in Rochester and everyone who's reached out all over the country. We want to say thank you to everyone who is standing up and saying what happened to my father should have not happened to anyone. I can't describe what it's like to receive the news of his murder or their experience of watching that awful video. I felt helpless, like I was there with him and there was nothing I could do. I wouldn't wish this nightmare on anyone. But as painful as it is important that the world sees these images. They have the power to spark the change we need. I want to tell you more about my father, though. He was more than the last final moments. Robert L. Brooks was a neighborhood hero. He was a great man. He was everyone's favorite uncle. He wanted to make sure everybody was happy around him. That's what made him happy. He was very passionate of creating music and writing short stories. One of my favorite memories of my father is when his car broke down, but he still made sure we got to the studio every day. I will continue his legacy, and I will make him proud by making my music. While my father was serving out his sentence, we would talk regularly, and we began to dream of a new life when he had got out. Those officers in the system they worked for, they robbed us of that opportunity. And I would never get my father back. They'll have to take it from me forever, but we will not allow his death to be in vain. This pain must lead to justice for my father and for our family, and we will not stop fighting until we get it. Thank you.
We're looking at a murder on film, on body cam, on this body cam camera. Russ captured a brutal murder. What happened? Why isn't there an arrest? How come the people that were seen on that body cam footage are not in jail where they belong? Why didn't they get arrested yet?
Good morning. My name is Jared Ricks. Robert Brooks was my older brother and my only brother. Robert was 11 years and 1 day older than me. And as an older brother should, he was always there when I needed him. My first words were rah-rah for Robert. He was my role model, my voice of reason, my listening ear, and now he's gone. Growing up, I felt so lucky that Robert was my brother. Everyone loved Robert, and most of us wanted to be like him. I vividly remember rolling up to family gatherings and feeling like a celebrity as our family greeted us. Me personally, I wanted to walk like him, talk like him, dress like him. I wanted people to have that same glow when I walked in a room. No matter who you were or how long it'd been since he last seen you, he'd always make you feel important. My brother was my guardian angel before he got his wings. We frequently went to the movies, bowling, shopping. As I matured, he never shied away from those tough love conversations, which is part has given me the strength to be with you guys today. My brother and I shared a passion for music. He'd often bring me to the studio. When I got older, he started asking for my input on his music. He even let me get on one of his tracks, and I just knew we would go platinum. My brother had a meaningful and unique bond with so many people, some of whom I've known my entire life, and some who have shared their stories with me over the last month. My family and I are taking things day by day. You know, days turn to weeks, weeks turn to months, months turn to years. My brother had done 8 of the 12 years that he was sentenced to as seen fit in the eyes of the law. But the 17 individuals at Marcy Correctional Facility gave him a death sentence, and that's just not fair. People who are incarcerated are human beings. They have rights. They deserve to live without fear that something like this could happen to them. Our family is devastated, but we are also committed. We're going to use our agony to fight for justice so that no one has to watch clips of devastation 30 minutes at a time or go through the plethora of emotions that I've gone through in the last month. We want these killers prosecuted, and we want change. Big bro, we love you, and we won't stop fighting for justice and accountability in your name.
Well spoken by his son, Robert Brooks Jr., and his brother, Jared. I got to give them credit because I don't know if the shoe was on the other foot, how difficult that would be for me to get up there and talk about my brother like they did. So we send them all of our support, strength, and Evie, she asked, has the family reached out to me? And through one of our great viewers who happens to be friends with a cousin of Robert Brooks, I did speak, as I said earlier, to Robert Brooks Sr. I spoke to his Robert Brooks' father, who's a pastor at a local church. And in this press conference, they talk about the community center that they run and what they do through the church, what his family does through the church. And I had a wonderful conversation with his father, and I intend to do whatever I can to help get the word out about Robert Brooks and his murder. And like I said, we're going to shout it from the rooftops. And I want to thank everybody who has been in the live chat. If you guys can right now, Ed Wallace, myself, and Amazing Ant, we ask you all to just give this video a thumbs up, share it out onto your social media platform, put it anywhere that you can put it, because this has to get out there. And the news won't speak about it. I don't get it, but Google and YouTube, they don't like this stuff either. Every time that we light up a video about Robert Brooks, it gets throttled. But it is what it is. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I'm going to continue to say Robert Brooks's name, and we need justice. We need these guys arrested. And if they're not arrested, like you said, Amazing Ant, she's looking up her flight miles. We might be on an airplane going up there soon. Yeah. I want to go to the chat real quick as promised. Hashtag Ed, hashtag Amazing Ant. Just put Ant, A-N-T. That'll make it easier. And hashtag DutyRon. Let's answer some questions. And if you're new and just joining, let us know that you're new here so we could say hello to you. Yeah, crazy stuff is coming into the inbox as we speak. A few people sent me messages as we were live saying that New York State police are outside one of these correctional officers' homes, former correctional officers, murderers' homes, providing them with security. What? That's a
hell no.
I mean, that's an oh hell no times 10. So now the citizens of the state of New York are tax-paying dollars are going to protecting. I mean, I hope that that's not true, but I trust. I got multiple messages while I'm live. DutyRon, I live up here. They outside these guys' homes, there's state police, and it's probably because they're getting threats. But
probably
you see how this works, people. Where's Robert Brooks' protection? They killed him. All right, let's look. Hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon, hashtag Amazing Ant. Just put Ant in the chat. I don't see anything. I guess everyone's just.
Ben McCoy did. He said, just dropping in to say hello. 0730 comes early. So glad that the Brooks family has filed suit. Still waiting for those responsible for his death to be arrested. He tagged us all.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you for catching that. Ed, you got anything to add before we close?
Well, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and sharing your time with us, your precious time with us. I know you can get your true crime fix anywhere on the internet you like. This case stinks. It's really pains me My prayers and thoughts are with the family. And, I get it. I get it. He committed a crime, but he was not sentenced to death. He was sentenced to 12 years for his crime. Okay. No reasonable person looking at that video from the time they were walking him in to that facility from the van or the vehicle that they were driving in to that medical suite can justify what transpired. You cannot justify it. There's no way to justify it. Okay. We're looked at an out and out assault that led to murder. Okay. Done by criminals in uniform.
100%.
And the fact that they're not arrested right now is mind-boggling to me. Mind-boggling. They shouldn't have to have cops out there in front of the house. They should be in jail. I mean, they may have to put cops. There may be threats to their family afterwards, and consequences have actions. They should have thought about that before they beat this man to death.
Yeah.
How this would impact their family.
Yes.
Chasing Truth, her handle in the chat is Chasing. I'm looking at it on my secondary device because I don't know why, for some reason, her messages aren't coming up on my live chat here, but it's coming over on my phone. She says, #DutyRon, have you read the 2022 report about Marcy? ? I have not. And if you have it, Tracy, send it to me. I know you have my email because we corresponded a few times. If you don't mind, send it to me. I'd love to read that and review it and talk about it on the next live stream. So thank you for that, Chasing Truth, Tracy. She's in Massachusetts, and listen, this kind of stuff gets everybody's blood boiling, but I know that she's passionate about justice and covering true crime. And when there's good cops and good correctional officers, we love to highlight them. But when this stuff happens like this, I double down on it because us good guys and gals, we despise this. This is repulsive. This makes my stomach turn.
No one hates a dirty cop more than a good cop.
Yeah, it makes me so goddamn nauseous. I mean, I even said to one of my friends who's not in law enforcement, I said, if I was still on the job and I worked up there, I would gladly lock these scumbags up. I would gladly drag them in to central booking and shackle them and put them through and throw them in a cell. It's just baffling that this is happening. Day 37. We're going into day 37 here. It's sickening. It's repulsive. It's all of the above. So I want to personally send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the Brooks family and the extended family up in that Greece, New York neighborhood. That's where Robert Brooks is from, Greece, New York. I also want to send a lot of strength and prayers to the pastor, Robert Brooks Sr., his congregation, and his people who pray on a daily basis for justice and pray for the good of mankind. I lock arms and I walk and stand tall with them. Anything that I can do. And Eileen, who is a cousin of Robert Brooks, she reached out to me as well. Eileen, anything that you need, you just, you got my number, text me, email me. I'm here for you. And you could use my platform to get your message out. Amazing Aunt, go to you for the final words.
Yeah, I found that article today on Spectrum One News in Central New York about 6 hours ago. They do mention, thank you, Chasing, they do mention the 2022 report. It just came out 6 hours ago, and it highlights what Chasing was speaking about. So if anyone wants to look that up, Spectrum One News in Central New York. Thank you, DutyRon, for sharing this. I really, really feel motivated, and I hope that it can work out to go up there. I love to go to the Father's Church. I love to support if they do a memorial service, right? Or we could stream it. I don't know. We could talk about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I'm agreeing.
Can you hear me?
I'm
okay.
agreeing.
Yeah, I got a little buzz. But yeah, I just can't sit back. But most importantly, I think it's important for all of us to pause and remember Martin Luther King Day is this Monday. And it's so bizarre and ironic that we're talking about civil rights and federal lawsuits and this homicide. But the system and humans failed Mr. Brooks, and Dr. Martin Luther King fought for all of us to be free, whether we're on one side of the fence, the other side of the fence, one side of politics, the other side of politics, one side of religion, the other side of religion. The beauty of this beautiful country is our freedoms. And sadly, Mr. Brooks' freedoms was taken away and his life was taken away. And I'm praying for justice, but I like for us to continue to speak loud for justice.
Amen to that. And I would be honored to go up there and attend the service, and again lock arms and protest with them up there peacefully. Anything, and it doesn't have to be streamed or anything like that. I want to go up there and just support that family. So thank you to all for being here. Thank you to everybody in the chat. If you can, again, while you're here, remember, hit that thumbs up. All 500 of you that are here in the chat, please hit that thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. Share it onto your community posts, on your social media platform. I've already shared it everywhere that I can. And again, the power in numbers. You know, we need to stick together on this, because Robert Brooks could be you, could be me. It could be any of us. It could be any of our loved ones, our friends, anybody. This could happen to anyone. And I'm not just hearing this from a small amount of people. This is a large amount of people from all walks of life that are talking about being brutalized behind the walls in New York State Department of Corrections. So this is a problem that's happening to everybody, and we need to make sure that there's change here. So on behalf, go ahead.
Sorry, real quick, everyone. Wasn't going to say it, but I'll tell you quickly. I have a relative who's incarcerated right now at a local jail in another state. I wasn't going to share it, but I think that my drive for justice goes beyond the badge. It's the human element. But I told DutyRon quickly earlier that I did a video call with this relative who I was raised with, same age, we were raised in the same block, and low level offense, he's an addict. And when we did the video visit, I still have my tree up. I figured let him see the Christmas tree that just brings some, New Year cheer. And a CO, we were only on 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds. And a CO saw, they laughed, they looked closely, they see me. So I kind of went off screen a little because I didn't want to be there, and they yanked him off. And now I'm beginning to wonder what's really going on in all the jails nationwide.
Yeah. Yeah, when you told me that earlier, I shook my head. Chasing, thank you for posting it on the community tab. I appreciate you.
Yes,
all right, guys, on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, I'm going to wish you guys a good weekend. I had a really crummy week with my cancer fatigue. I call it cancer fatigue. I just get I run out of gas, and then I take a nap for 2 or 3 hours, and then I'm up for another hour. So it's been a shitty week for me with this cancer battle that I have, fighting lymphoma, which is a blood cancer. I know I don't look sick, and I'm happy that I don't, but I feel sick sometimes. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for all the kind words, the prayers. You prayer warriors are unbelievable. But again, justice for Robert Brooks. We're going to continue on with this. Stand by for a message from the cop team. That's Kara, Oscar, and Popeye. That's our security team. I'll see you guys all soon, and thanks for joining. Good night.
Good night.